Hello guys, and welcome to Cooking Up Science with Chef Tommy. Today I will show you the science behind making bread, rock candy, and pickles. Are you ready for some science fun? Let's begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We make the goods and learn the science. While having fun, we talk it through and think about the things we eat. It's time to learn. It's time to cook. It's time for cooking up with science. Oh yeah. Welcome back. So I have pre-laid out all of our ingredients and I will put a list of all those things in the description below. But first we're going to start off with taking 2.5 cups of warm water, warmed up to 110 degrees, and we're going to sprinkle in a tablespoon of active dry yeast. After adding the dry yeast, we're going to let it sit for 5 minutes. Did you know that yeast is alive? It's a single-celled fungus, and there's over 160 different species of yeast. Okay guys, I'll check back in 5 minutes. Now that the yeast is set for 5 minutes, we're going to beat in a 1/2 cup of honey, two large eggs, 1, 2, 1 tablespoon salt, and we're going to just give that a mix real quick. And 4 tablespoons of vegetable oil. 1, 2, 3, 4. After this is all mixed together, we're going to move this liquid solution into a bigger bowl. After I do this, I'll start up again. I have just moved the substance into a larger bowl, and now we're going to add 8 cups of all-purpose flour. And as I'm mixing it in, I'm going to tell you some fun facts about baked goods and flour. So here we go, guys. We're adding the first. You want to add these in tiny proportions, so that way it's easy to mix in. But our first fact is that baking powder and baking soda are used in baked goods that have delicate structures, ones that rise quickly as carbon dioxide is produced, such as quick breads like cornbread and biscuits. But because we're making bread, we are going to add flour. There are lots of different types of flours used in bread, but the most commonly used in raising breads is wheat flour. Make sure that there's no lumps. Mixing in all of the flour. Don't worry, I do have more facts for you. Just trying to give this dough some attention. Back onto the wheat flour. The reason why we use wheat flour is because there are 2 proteins inside of it. There's gluten and gliadine, which when combined with water forms gluten. Keep adding the flour. There we go. As you knead the dough, the gluten becomes more and more stretchy. This gum-like substance fills with thousands of gas bubbles as the yeast goes to work during rising. But we're going to use 8 cups of all-purpose flour for our dough, but not all at once, as we've been doing. As it starts to get thicker, it's going to be harder to mix, but that's okay. I'm going to continue to add the rest of these 8 cups, and I'll check back in with you after I do that. Now that I've finished mixing the dough, I'm going to take it and lay it out onto a lightly surfaced area. Restart that area. Hey guys, now that I have finished mixing the dough and, continue mixing the dough until you can't. When the dough is dense and you can no longer mix, lightly flour. When the dough is dense and you can no longer mix it, lightly flour surface and your hands and pour the dough out onto the surface. We are going to knead the dough until it is stretchy and elastic. And after I'm finished kneading it, I will get back to you guys. Hey guys, I'm back. So after I let it sit for about 3 hours, took a little bit longer than expected, I punched out the dough and cut it into a half. And I had two blobs, and I cut the other half into 3 sections, and then I rolled them out into an inch thick rope, and now I'm going to braid them. And so you're going to start from the middle, crossing one over, crossing one in the middle, crossing one over, just doing this. Until you get to the end, and tuck the ends under, and turn it around. And braid, 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 making sure it's nice and tight. Three, and tuck the end under. So after you do that, you should be left with something like this, braided nicely. Now, after braiding both of the doughs, I'm going to put them on a lightly greased pan. One more. And then we're going to place that damp towel back on top of them for another hour. See you back then. Hey guys, so as our bread dough is setting, we are going to start making our rock candy. We are going to start with 2.5 cups of water, and you're going to bring it to a boil, And then you're going to add in 8 cups of sugar. And we're going to mix it in. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to start telling you some facts about rock candy. The white stuff we know as sugar is sucrose, a molecule composed of 12 atoms and 22 atoms of hydrogen and 11 atoms of oxygen. Like all compounds made of these elements, sugar is a carbohydrate. It is found naturally in most plants, and especially in sugarcane and sugar beets, hence the name. Sucrose is actually 2 simpler sugars stuck together, fructose and glucose. In recipes, a little bit of acid, for some example, lemon juice or cream of tartar, will cause sucrose to break down into these 2 components. When you add sugar to water, the sugar crystals dissolve. The sugar goes into the solution. But you can't dissolve an infinite amount of sugar into an infinite amount of water. When as much sugar is dissolved into water, this solution is known to be saturated. So I've added in about 5 cups of sugar, and it's just dissolving now. And after this, I will come back and tell you how it goes. Okay guys, now it's time for some fun facts about sugar. Supersaturation is an unstable state. The sugar molecules begin to crystallize back into a solid. Stirring of any kind will cause the sugar to crystallize. The fact that sugar solidifies into crystals is extremely important in candy making. There are basically 2 categories of candies. Crystalline, candies that contain crystals in their final form, such as fondant, and non-crystalline, candies that do not have crystals in their final form, such as lollipops and taffies. Recipes, ingredients, and procedures for non-crystalline candies are very specific, designed so that way there is no crystals inside of the candy, because it gives the candy a grainy texture, which you do not want in non-crystalline candies. If you were going to invert the crystal process, you would add an acid like lemon juice or cream of tartar. So that's it for making rock candy. Let's move on to pickling. The yeast inside continuously feeds on the pockets of gas inside the dough, continuing to expand. As the temperature rises, the yeast eventually dies and the gluten hardens and the dough solidifies. So guys, I'm gonna pop these in the oven and get back to you in 40 minutes. Now that the bread is cooked for 40 minutes in the oven, I've let it sit out and cool off. So, here's the final product. It's delicious. Thank you for watching Cooking Up Science with Chef Tommy. Now that you know the science behind bread and rock candy, get ready for next week's episode. We make the goods and learn the science. While having fun, we talk it through and think about the things we eat. It's time to learn. It's time to cook. It's time for Cooking Up with Science. Oh, yeah. That'll be fun with my music at least.